Hello, and welcome to another episode of Time to Conquer. I'm your host, Mia Paul, and as always, I am extremely grateful that you made the decision to take a couple moments out of your extremely busy life to spend some time with me, work through some of our past traumas, baggage, and start to take control. Now, this week, I am really excited for our episode because I was presented with quite the question from one of our listeners after she spent some time last week listening to the episode about choosing those who choose you. Last week, we did a deep dive into figuring out whose opinions mattered to you, how to tune out some of the noise, and really establishing a secure and supportive circle around you that you could trust as you began on your journey of transformation and evolution. Our listener emailed me with the question that I'm about to present to you that really made me spend some days this past week thinking about the correct and most valuable answer to share with her. And once we were able to have a little bit of a conversation via email, I realized that if she had that question, chances were somebody else out there listening to this podcast also did. So what was the question, you might want to know? She was wondering, after listening to my podcast, after listening to the last couple episodes we've had, and especially last week's deep dive into the circle around you, how would somebody interested in making sure that the opinions they're listening to were the right ones, how would they make the distinction between criticism, judgment, and support? What a question. At first, I read that on our email and I was like, well, it's easy. Criticism's mean. Judgment's usually said behind your back, and support is positive. But as I took some time to really think about it, because that question has so many multiple facets that could be answered, I realized it really wasn't that simple. Judgments are sometimes said right to your face. Support can sometimes come in the form of tough love. And criticism, dependent on the intention behind it, can either be shared with you to help elevate you to the next level or cut you down. And as I was mulling about these thoughts in my head and having a conversation with our listener, I realized that searching through your circle and finding whose opinion matters to you is not always as simple as just deciding they're important to you and listening more, or deciding they're not contributing to your life and cutting you off. Sometimes it really depends on who is speaking to you, what is being said, and what message and what intention behind that message is really behind their words. Now, let me elaborate a little bit. When it comes to who you are speaking to, and when you, my listener, are going through a huge life change, when you have made the decision to take control of your life so you can live a life you love, there's going to be bumps in the road. Sometimes those bumps are ones you put there yourself. Sometimes we need to get out of our own way. But sometimes, as we evaluate who is around us and as we create this supportive circle who wants to be there, who wants to see us succeed, it's not black or white between who is good for us and who is holding us back. And sometimes, even more confusing, those relationships shift and change, and somebody who started out as being very good for us turns into somebody who's holding us back. And sometimes, the flip side of that, somebody who maybe didn't understand our desire to change in the beginning, who didn't see the big picture of why our transformation was important, and started out sort of negative or trying to be an anchor will go through a transformation of their own because you, my listener, are being a positive influence in their life, and they will become one of the biggest supporters behind you, really there, constantly trying to help you succeed. So let's get into it, shall we? When I talk about the intention behind criticism, you need to know that it has nothing to do with you. Other people's words, 99% of the time, have everything to do with their personal experiences. And if they are willing to shift their experiences into a way that can benefit or hold you back. Let me give you an example. When I was thinking about starting this podcast, I was nervous. Putting myself out there, putting my thoughts and feelings out there. I wasn't even sure anybody would want to listen to me. So, as most people do when deciding to start something new, I went to seek out the opinions of some people I trusted. I had 2 conversations that really stick out in my head. To give you a good example of somebody who was projecting their experience onto me and somebody who took their experience and was able to mold it and transform it into a way to really benefit me and give me an answer that maybe I didn't want to hear, but that was best for my situation. In that first example, I contacted somebody who I really trust. She has been in my life for years and has her own podcast. So in my head, I was like, perfect example, perfect person to reach out to. And I contacted her, set up a meeting. And as soon as we were on our one-on-one meeting, I spilled the beans. I was ready to start a podcast. I thought I had a message that could really, really impact others' lives, and I was in it. I was ready to buy the equipment. I was ready for the time commitment that it would take, and I was ready to open myself up and be vulnerable to hope that my message would impact somebody, would hope that the words I was saying would reach somebody's ears at just the right time when they needed to hear it to help them have the confidence to raise their standards, take control of their life, and overall just commit to becoming a better person. And I spilled it all. And as soon as I was done sharing with all of my excitement and all of the ideas in my head of why I thought this would be a great idea, I was instantly met with negativity. She shared with me how much work a podcast is and how it would take so much time away from my family. She shared that maybe I could focus on other things first and then eventually get around to the podcast. She just didn't have the supportive advice that I really expected to come from her. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It is important to remember that as you ask people for their opinions, you got to be ready to take their opinions. You're not in control of what they're going to share with you. And for a couple days, it really knocked the wind out of my sails. I had So after a couple days of mulling it over, I had a conversation with my husband because he saw my mood shift. He knew something was bugging me. And I shared what had happened in this conversation and how I was so excited, and she just didn't meet that excitement. And if you know my husband and I, you know we are exact opposites, and we see the same situation right in front of us 2 totally different ways, but that's the reason why we work. And he shared with me a perspective that I wasn't able to have in the moment because I was so excited and so into it. And he shared that, yes, she did have a podcast, but it did take away time from her family. It did take away some focused time from her business. And maybe it wasn't the experience she had thought it was going to be. And even further than that, she didn't take any time to ask me who I've talked to, what my plan was, did I have anybody helping me, what my weekly dedication time-wise was going to be to the podcast. She didn't ask me one question. Instead, she heard my excitement, took her own personal experiences, and just shot me down. My husband then reminded me it was important to get another opinion, maybe multiple other opinions. So the other person that I reached out to was also a podcaster. He was somebody I have known for years. He's somebody that I met in person at a networking event that I was uncomfortable, that I still went to. And he was somebody, this is an important part, who has dedicated himself and his time to helping others start podcasting. So I reached out to him asking for 30 minutes of his time, and thankfully he was willing to give that to me. And I, maybe with less excitement, but with the same intentions, spilled the beans with him. I thought I had a good message to share. I thought I had the life experiences that could really help others going through childhood trauma and breaking cycles for their own children. I was willing to invest in the right equipment and take the time each week to make sure I was consistent with getting my podcast out there. But I had a few concerns pretty much planted in my head from my previous conversation, and I asked him if he had any thoughts for me with whether I was capable, if whether it was something he thought I should do, and how I could go around solving some of those roadblocks that I did see that I maybe wasn't understanding of when I was, gung-ho, all excited to start. And our conversation was night and day different than my first conversation. He asked me 50 questions. He provided resources for me that could help with the time commitment, that could help me learn the skills I needed to for editing and videos and connecting my equipment to my computer. And he provided all of this information to me with no strings attached. He didn't have a financial gain to get me to start a podcast. He met me as a friend with more experience. And for 30 minutes, actually, I probably took a little bit more of his time. I'm a talker. For 30 minutes, he listened and asked me questions, listened to my answer, asked me more questions, and finally gave me his opinion based off of the potential he saw in me, what the solutions could be based off of what I said I was willing to do, willing to spend, what time commitment I was willing to make. And not once did he take his own personal experiences and project them onto me. So this example really shows that whose opinion you're taking, you need to know the intention. And it may not be a conscious intention. I don't think my first friend was trying to cut me down. She wasn't trying to take the wind out of my sails. She said she was excited for me, but she was unable to remove herself from her own experiences, and she didn't take the time to ask me what my experience was going to be, what my willingness was. Now, as you can probably guess, since you're listening to this podcast, I went ahead anyways and started. And I still consider the person from my first example my friend. She is a mentor, absolutely. But something has shifted because I'm able to realize that instead of taking the time to talk to me about me, she instead shared her opinion of her experience, her examples, her memories of starting a podcast. And when we talk about needing to know the intention behind somebody's criticism, it goes back to the fact that if you are asking somebody, a mentor, a leader, a coach, for their opinion, yes, You gotta accept that it may not be what you want to hear. And maybe your coach is the type of personality to give you some tough love. And maybe your coach is giving you tough love because they know you need to hear it. But a good coach asks questions constantly. A good coach lets you form your own opinions based off of the feedback they're giving you. They don't give you the blueprint. They don't shut you down just because that was their experience. A good coach realizes that everybody has a different experience, and the coach's role is to help make it easier, make it truthful feedback, and be somebody in your corner that is willing to support you if you make the decision to move forward. It's not your coach's decision whether or not you do it. It's not your mentor's decision how you go about it. Those people that you place in those positions to be somebody to give you their opinion need to be able to put your progress, your experience separate from theirs. Now, I hope that's making sense, because when we talk about feedback, sometimes criticism is a part of feedback. But if it's somebody that you know is coming from a supportive, loving, caring, wanting to be their perspective, that feedback, you don't need to take it personally. You can know that feedback is being shared with you to improve you, to help you skip some of the roadblocks that they experienced because they already lived through it. They can help make your process easier. But if somebody's criticism is coming to you from a place of cutting you down and not thinking about you, then you need to, one, reevaluate why that person is in your circle. And two, you need to be at a place of confidence to know that their negative words have nothing to do with you. Their criticism have nothing to do with you. It is personal to them, as they sometimes get lost and caught up in their own negativity. And instead of taking the time to make sure that they are there to help coach you, instead they try to lead you in the direction they think is best, regardless of what really is in your heart. So back to our original question, when we talk about how do you know if somebody's support, how do you know if somebody's criticism is good for you, or if it's just cutting you down? And no matter what you do, no matter how much progress you make, no matter how much greatness you bring to the table, they're never going to see it. I think the answer lies deep in our hearts, that we already know. It's not always easy, especially with personal relationships like family, friends that have been around forever, and sometimes even our intimate partner or our best friend or our spouse, because we want to believe they're coming from the best place. We want to believe they want to support us. How could somebody that you would support no matter what they're doing, how could they not return that to you? But it's not always that simple. It's not black and white. And people go through chapters. Sometimes you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Somebody, especially in social media nowadays, somebody can show up happy and loving and in the best relationship ever, and then they announce they're getting divorced. Somebody can be in great physical shape and taking all the right photos, and then it comes out they were using illegal substances. Somebody can be a person who has accumulated tons and tons of followers and always seems to have the right answer. And then you find out it's not them writing their posts. You can't assume you know what's going on behind the scenes until you put yourself in a position to see these people, these mentors, your friends, your coaches, your family, in a position where you can see from the outside if they have your true best intention at heart. A personal little antidote that's funny and shows how somebody's opinion of you can change. In the beginning of my jump into the personal development realm, my father did not understand. He saw what he had known as his daughter, the personality I've had, just shift. And it was probably a little scary. And he tore me down to my face, to our family members, to pretty much anybody that would listen. And I had to make the decision that even though he was going to still be in my life, even though he was my father, who I love to death, I wasn't going to take that opinion personally because I knew it had more to do with his pain than it had to do with my growth. Last November, I had my wedding, and our wedding was a very intimate, small gathering of the best of the best. And my dad, 6 years after the start of my personal development journey, walked around to all of my best friends, who some of them knew the struggles we had been through before, beaming with pride because he knew that decision I had made years ago to start a business, to put myself out there, to be vulnerable, to become a certified life coach, to become a nutrition expert, he knew that decision paid for the wedding we were in. He knew that those changes in me helped me grow into a person worthy of the man I was marrying. He knew that those decisions made me the mom that I was and am today. He knew that those decisions were the things that made that small circle that surrounded us so close because they were my best friends, that we had been through hell and back together, but we are always focused on improving. And he knew it. All it really took was some time, honestly, some success, and a dedication from me that he knew no matter what he was saying, good or bad, I was continuing on the path that I had chosen. He was eventually given the option of supporting me or being removed from my life. And I don't mean removed as we wouldn't see each other. I don't mean removed as he wouldn't be somebody I would be there for in a case of an emergency or a problem that arose in our family. Family's family, and I believe that to my core. But he also knew he wouldn't be there to see some of my successes. He wouldn't be there to hear about my day-to-day wins if every time I talked to him, it was a negative judgment coming out of his mouth. He had to make the decision if he was going to support me or not. And I am so, so grateful that he was able to come around, that I was able to accept that it took some time. Our timelines are not other people's timelines. You may be ready to transform right now. You may be ready to change right now. And maybe the loved ones around you just aren't there yet. That's life. Timelines are different, but you have to be able to know the intention behind it. I know he was worried about me. He was concerned about seeing me as a different person than he had ever seen before. But I knew in his heart he loved me. I knew it was a fatherly instinct to try to protect me. And that was great. And I'm thankful for that. But I also knew that I knew what was best for me. I knew that I was the only one that had to wake up and look at myself in the mirror and love who I saw. I was the only one that had to raise my children in an environment where they could be surrounded by people who they could count on. So in the end, we both had to make our decisions. And I'm proud to announce that, of course, my commitment helped him also come around and support me and love me and not talk trash about me. But it took time. When we talk about intentions, when we talk about criticism, when we talk about judgment, what really the core of what you need to know is if that person will ever be willing to see you as you are becoming, not keep you in your mind as who you were. They don't need to be there right away. And it doesn't have to happen overnight. Change, transformation, evolution, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes daily commitment. And we've talked about that in our previous episodes. Sometimes all you need is to have somebody speaking in your ear for 5 minutes and telling you you can do it. Sometimes you need to be the one looking at yourself in the mirror, reminding yourself that this decision is worth it, that the work is hard, that sometimes it's tiring and sometimes it's scary. But in the end, it will be worth it because you will be becoming somebody that you want to become. You will be able to show the true version of you and not water yourself down and not hide yourself to please others when you're the one that has to live the life that you are in right now. Sometimes when we talk about removing toxic people, it gets a little dicey because the toxic people don't want you to remove them ever. And sometimes the people there to support you, because they support you and they see the pain you're in and they see the work you're doing, they will watch from behind. They will watch from the side. They will give you your space because they've been through it. They know that no one's going to force you to move 1 second faster than you're ready for. But they also know that when you wake up one day and you decide, man, today is the day, I am ready. I am ready to take control. I am not going to live a life that I am miserable anymore. That they will be the people that pop into your head that you know you have to connect with because they will help you take those first steps. And my friends, as we finish up our episode today, I want to remind you that I am blessed to be one of those people, that I am so thankful that you have subscribed to this podcast and you have decided that even if it's every once in a while or weekly, as I hope, you will tune in and hear my message because every week we are in it together. I want to take it one step farther. I want to provide more value to you. I'm so thankful for having this connection on social media and in our podcast world and on YouTube. But maybe you're ready for one step farther. Maybe you're ready to share your story with me. Maybe you're ready to get some personalized advice, help, coaching. And I want to be able to provide that for you. So I am offering to you, my friend, a 30-minute free, no strings attached call with me. And all you have to do is go to the link in the show notes to schedule it with me. You can go to my Instagram, miapaul_XO, and find the link in my bio, or you can email me at timetoconquerpodcast@gmail.com and together we will find a time that works for both of us for 30 minutes, sitting down, friendship, support, and love. And on that note, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. No matter what you're doing today, no matter what you are doing as you listen, I hope that these words, this message, resonated with you at some point and helped you determine just one step farther how you can know whose opinions matter, how you can make the distinction between somebody judging you because that's the type of person they are, and no matter what you do, no matter how successful you become, they will always find something wrong with you, or give those around you some grace to realize that this is a big change for you and this is a big change for them. But if they have your best intention at heart, if they love the person you are and truly want to see you succeed, they will put in the work. They will give it the time necessary to see it come full circle, and eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, they will be in your corner and somebody that you can count on. So thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and feel free to send me questions like this, because truth be told, if you have this question, somebody else listening does, and I would love to be able to give you some insight, some actionable steps to take, and help you work through all of the crazy thoughts going on in your head. Hope you have a good rest of your day today. Spend some time with me next week.